What's up, gals? Thank you so much for being here with us again. Today we have an incredible speaker. His name's Roger Allen. He's a family life and parenting expert, business consultant, and a psychologist. He's helped organizations with their relationships and helped empower their employees for most of his career before turning over to being a parenting expert. Is that right, Roger?
Yes, that's correct. I spent the first 10 years of my career practicing psychology and then transitioned into full-time business consulting. And really, relationships are relationships. Some of the core values that I was teaching and skill sets that I was teaching with organizations are very similar to what we do within families. And so when I retired officially from my consulting, I did kind of come full circle back to the personal development, human development, parenting kind of material that has intrigued me and which I have loved for years.
So if you have a child who keeps breaking your trust that you're giving them, do you suggest, because you mentioned it sounds like you need to have a lot of patience, obviously, as a person, as a parent, especially when you're using this approach. So is it kind of a waiting game when you have a child who just continuously kind of keeps breaking your trust? How do you handle them then?
You know, sometimes I talk about big trust and little trust. And big trust is, hey, I believe in you. You're a capable person. You're whole. You have all of the resources that you need inside of you to be able to live a good and healthy and productive life. That's big trust. Little trust is, but I don't think you're going to be honest with me.
Yeah.
You know, you're not going to be honest with me. And I know that, you took the car out last weekend and look what happened. And, there are some limits. And there are some consequences. And so little trust is in the short term, you need to show me that you can behave in a trustworthy way in order to have these privileges. And if you can't show me that, then, you lose these privileges. You're not going to be able to take the car out. You're not going to be able to, there are some limitations. There's some privileges that are taken away. But I still believe in you. And if I'm coming from big trust, instead of coming from hostility when I talk to the child, instead of coming from resentment and anger, I'm coming from a better place. I'm coming from, more love and acceptance and not personalizing. I think what happens is we personalize their behavior and it becomes a reflection of me. And I think, oh, this means that I'm a bad parent and it means that I'm a bad person. And if I can change my own thinking from fear-based to trust-based and faith-based, then it's easier for me to let go of that and see that this behavior on the part of the child is about the child. Mm. And so, yeah, I may set up some limits and some consequences, but I'm going to try to connect. In fact, with that child who is acting out, that acting out behavior causes us to be alienated, right? We want to pull away from each other and get into these collusive power struggles. Instead, I'm going to find ways to become closer. And I'm going to start noticing things that child is doing right. And I'm going to comment on it and I'm going to praise them. I'm going to take more interest in their life. When they go to bed at night, maybe I'm going to sneak down into their room and, knock on the door, sit on the end of that bed and say, hey, how are you doing? Because I want to build connection first. Connection precedes, in a sense, empowering our kids. They're not going to allow us to help empower them if we're not connected to them. And the most important thing I can do that is to become a safe place for them and to take an interest in this boy's life and to be curious about him and be curious about the things and be interested in the things that he's interested in, cars and girls and baseball and whatever it might be. And I'm going to ask about, hey, how is that going? And then I'm going to be a really good listener. So I'm going to try to build that connection first. And then, can begin having conversations that open up more honesty between us. Hey, I'm concerned about some of the decisions that you've been making lately. Can I tell you what that looks like from my point of view? And why I'm even worried about you? I believe in you. And I believe you have so many good resources, but I'm a little worried about some of the things that I see right now. But I'm not going to broach that until I've done a little bit, let this boy know that, hey, I want to connect with you and I want to know what's going on in your world. So I'm going to do some good listening. Does that make sense?
It does. I love that. So if you're trying to connect with your teenage son, and I feel like this is fairly common with teenagers, you're trying to connect with them and they don't think you're cool. They don't really want you around. A lot of these teenagers, would you suggest being persistent at that point or giving them space, or how do you approach it then?
I both, be persistent maybe in a different way. If something isn't working, don't keep doing it, right? Find another way of going about it. Find them at another time when they're more open, more vulnerable. Don't do it in a way that's going to embarrass them, but I would just ask a question and be curious. And if he opens up and wants to talk, then great. And if it's not a time he wants to talk, I'm not going to force it. I'll tell you that one of the most frustrating things for me as a parent, I had one child who wouldn't open up. That was part of my perfect imperfection too, because that really frustrated me. And so I would probably try to force her to talk to me a little more than was helpful.
Yeah.
What I've learned is, hey, this is your life. You're going to make decisions. And I want to be here for you. And I want to support you. And I care about what's happening, but I'm not going to force it. And I'm not going to force myself on you. There's a great little book that I love called The Rabbit Listened. And a little boy builds a tower and some blackbirds knock it over. And then all these different animals come and you should be so mad. And here, I'll help you fix it. And let's just get rid of it and try to fix the problem for him. But the rabbit comes in and the rabbit just kind of snuggles up to him and sits there. Until finally the little boy is ready to open up and talk. And then he gets mad and he deals with it himself and is ready to move on and build a new tower. But I love The Rabbit Listened. And I guess as a parent, I would have more of that approach today rather than trying to force it from my kids. If they're not ready to talk, that is okay, because I'll be here when you are. And I'm not going to force you into talking. But if there's a positive way we can connect, let's go do something that you really enjoy. I'll connect in a more surface way until you open the door and let me connect with you in a little bit deeper way.
I love that. Listening, trying to connect with them in their own space, in their own way. In their world. And then giving them a safe place. I love that you said that.
I think the most important thing, when I think back on my childhood, and I grew up in a good home, I grew up in a very good family. But I look back on my childhood and what I recognize is that more than anything else, what I wanted would have been for a parent to really be there. Because I had my inner struggles. I had my challenges and my questions and my self-doubts and my doubts about whatever in life and things that I was dealing with that were very hard. My parents really didn't know. I mean, I had two sisters that were really open and they would come home and they would talk about their day and everything and on and on and on and on, which was great. I loved them. And I was kind of quiet. But there was stuff going on inside of me. And I would have loved one of my parents to come and, just, hey, what's going on? Yeah. What's your life like right now? And maybe not quite that bluntly, but be there.
Yes.
Be there and be a safe place, because there is nothing more important to us than connection with another human being. And of course, as teens get older, as kids get older, they start seeking that outside of the family. But one of the reasons that they start seeking it outside of the family is because mom and dad aren't safe. And mom and dad aren't safe because as soon as they share something with us that feels dangerous, they tell us that, oh, these friends of theirs are smoking dope or going out and drinking on the weekend, or we react, or they say something like, I hate school and I'm never going back. And immediately it touches our fear. And so you don't mean that. and listen to yourself, and you are going back to school and you're not hanging out anymore. And we go into our fear response, in which we start over controlling and we start over indulging or protecting, rather than being able to come from a trusting place in which we are safe enough to, hey, tell me about it, you know?
Right.
So some of your friends are starting to make some decisions that you don't think are very good. What's that like for you? You know, I become a safe place. I let them talk to me. I want them to form a connection with me, you know, not just with their friends, but with me.